Good evening, everyone. Tonight's shiur is called A Nation of Converts, the Sinai experience, the preparation for the giving of the Torah Shavuot, which is Sunday night, Monday, and Tuesday, and it is dedicated in honor of my late father, Rabbi David Zion ben Esther alav shalom. May this shiur be an elevation to his soul as his 11 months draws close in a couple of days. So, a nation of converts. I call this shiur a nation of converts because the giving of the Torah is exactly what it says, exactly what I just described. A nation of converts. It is interesting to note that on Shavuot, the Ten Commandments, we read the Ten Commandments, it is found on Parashat Yitro. Out of all of the names to give a parasha, not Har Sinai, not the Ten Commandments, not the revelation of Sinai, not nothing, the whole parasha is called Yitro, after a convert. And that is what we read on Shavuot as well. As well on Shavuot we read Ruth. Ruth was the convert, one of the great examples of what a convert is, that my nation is your nation, your God is my God, where you go, I will go. And we read it on Shavuot. We read on Shavuot for a few reasons. First of all, because it is a season of harvest, and when she came to Boaz was a season of harvest. Second of all, she's the great-grandmother of David HaMelech, and of course David HaMelech is descendant of Ruth, and Mashiach comes from David HaMelech. And in fact, the whole purpose of the giving of the Torah is to herald in the messianic redemption, as we will speak about in a minute. So the whole concept of the giving of the Torah is a transformation, taking a young nation who were the children of Yaakov and turning them into something extraordinary. Mamlechet Kohanim veGoy Kadosh, a nation of priests and a holy nation. Something extraordinarily different than what they were before. And in order to achieve this, they had to do three things. First of all, circumcision, which is already in the time of Abraham Avinu, but was neglected in Egypt. Second of all, dipping in the mikvah, and we will soon see the significance of that. And the Naaseh v'nishma, the unqualified and unquestioning declaration of commitment to the giving of the Torah. Naaseh v'nishma, we shall do, we commit to do everything that God has commanded us, and to study and to learn, which really negates ordinary human psyche and ordinary human behavior. Ordinary human behavior is that we want to know and we want to understand, and not for naught, because when we know and understand something, we embrace it with great passion and great love. And here the Jewish people reversed the order and said, Naaseh v'nishma. Naaseh v'nishma, we commit to do and to study. Reverse the order. Why did they reverse the order? This reversing the order was so crucial that without it they would not have received the Torah. In other words, this code of preceding Naaseh v'nishma was so great that God himself said, Migila lebanai razu, who revealed to my children this secret? What is the secret? This secret has got to do with the concept of converting or transformation. Converting themselves into a nation of priests and a holy nation, and converting the world to a place that is fitting for the divine revelation. For until now, even though that Abraham Avinu and Yaakov and the forefathers were connected to the spiritual concept of the revelation of the Torah, because the concept of Torah is not just an occurrence that happened at the giving of Mount Sinai, it's really the wisdom of God. And anybody that can tap into the wisdom of God, and as the Kabbalists teach us, the wisdom of God embeds itself in every world, in the most holiest and loftiest level of every world. And we can connect to that revelation of God going up the ladder, whether it is, as the Kabbalists teach us, the four worlds, the world of Asiyah, this world, or the world of Yetzirah, the world of Briyah, the world of Atzilut. God, the godly revelation of Chokhmato Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the wisdom of God, is revealed in every world. And we can relate to godliness or the divine revelation on varying levels depending on how we tap in. And so surely the forefathers tapped into this level of divine revelation. As the Gemara says, sages tell us that the sages fulfilled the Torah before the Torah was actually commanded and revealed to us. How did they reveal it? Not in a so physical, tangible way like we do today, but rather in a more metaphysical, spiritual connection. And for this reason, they weren't able to infuse the world with a holiness that was the hidush, the novelty of the giving of the Torah. For from that moment onwards, everything that we involve in a mitzvah, in a commandment of God, is infused with holiness. Becomes holy. You take leather, you make a parchment, you make tefillin, it becomes holy. You take wool, it becomes holy. You eat something kosher, you make a bracha, and you eat it for the sake of heaven, and the energy that you received from it, you either went to work to earn a livelihood, to support your family, or to study Torah, or to pray. You have turned the sparks of that food into holiness. And that is the novelty or the transformation or the converting of a nation and the whole world that occurred on Mount Sinai. Now let us take this then a step further. We know that on Pesach, the Jewish people, the day after Pesach, the counting of the Omer, the reason why it's counting of the Omer is because the Jewish people were commanded to bring an Omer offering. An Omer offering is of barley. Firstly, because that was when the barley season was ripened. And secondly, because barley is ma'achal behema, is fodder food for animals. Usually barley was not eaten it was not for human consumption. Human consumption is wheat. In contradistinction on Shavuot, in the temple they offered, or in the tabernacle they offered, shnei alehem, 2 loaves of bread. 2 loaves of bread, which were in fact hametz. They weren't put up on the altar because you cannot put hametz on the altar. So on Pesach, the offering is barley, type of bread that's made out of barley. On Shavuot, made out of wheat. What's the difference? Because the food of the wheat is food for ma'achal Adam of man, Adam. We know that behema, the numerical value of behema is 52, which corresponds to one of God's name that is spelt out in a particular way, that refers to malchut, or a recipient. It refers to a level that receives rather than initiates. Then there's a higher name by the name of Ma, how you spell out God's name in a particular way, when you spell God's name out in full. When I say the normal name of God is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. But then you take the letter Yud and you spell it out. Yud Vav Dalet. Hey, now Hey can be spelled in different ways. Hey Yud, Hey Aleph, and then Vav, Vav Aleph, Vav Yud, Vav, and then again Hey, and Hey Aleph, etc., or Hey Yud. So you can spell out God's name generally in 4 different ways, one higher than the other one. The lowest is Shem Ban, called Shem Ban, which is 52, numerical value 52, which is exact same numerical value as Behemah, which refers to a lower level of divine revelation. So when the Jewish people who were spiritually immature, who were dependent upon divine revelations and miracles, were on a lower level. And thus the sacrifice reflected that and was one of an animal food, which was barley. Behemah being the lower level of revelation of godliness. Why? Because they were dependent upon miracles. It was the miracles that propelled them. God came and projected them to that higher level. Passover means He passed over all levels and took them out of Egypt. Which isn't so in Shavuot. Shavuot, the Jewish people prepared themselves. And because they prepared themselves to this great revelation, they merited to have a greater revelation of godliness. One that is more associated with the name of God of Ma, of Mem and Hey, which is 45, which is the numerical value of Adam, man. And And I'm not going to get into the details of the two names of God and how this name is particular to man and why it is, because it represents the majority of his emotions, because man has more emotions than he has intellect, the three intellectual capacities, or Keter Chokhmah Binah, and there are 6 midot, 6 attributes, or 6 emotions, etc., which is the majority of bulk of who we are, but we're not going to get into that now. But that represents the main dimension or revelation of man. And we're going to get to the concept of Adam, which is a numerical value of Ma, in a minute. So as I said, it's a concept of transformation, transforming ourselves from a lower level of revelation to a totally different level of revelation, a higher level of revelation. The Gemara tells us that Ger shenit gaer kekatan shenolad dami. A convert that converts is considered like a newborn child. New rebirth, total new entity, totally new psyche, totally new, total transformation. There's an interesting pasuk, it says, Vaikhuli truma. Take from me a truma, a donation, a gift. Truma. Vaikhuli truma. Take from me a truma. The word teruma contains 2 concepts. Torah, mem. The greatest gift that we can give to Hashem is to incorporate in our lives the Torah that was given, or it reflects the letter mem. As we will soon see in a minute, what is the significance of this letter mem? The letter mem. So teruma, the greatest gift that we can give to Hashem, is Torah, mem. Torah that was given on Mount Sinai in 40 days. There are other significant teachings as well. It's interesting to note that it says, V'ikhu li. Li, Rashi says, what does it mean, take for me? Rashi says, lishmi, for my name. What does it mean, for my name? What is the numerical value of the tetragrammaton name? 26. Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. Yud is 10, Hey is 5, plus 6 plus 5 equals 26. Li lishmi, take for my name. So li, the numerical value of li, is 40, which again is got to do with the Torah that was given with the letter mem, which is the Torah that was given on Mount Sinai in 40 days. So that's li. Rashi says li lishmi, my name. Now how do we write the letter mem? So we write the letter mem like this. Here's the letter mem. The letter mem is a composite of the letter chaf, which is a numerical value of 20, and vav, which is a numerical value of 6. Can you see that? Chaf vav equals 26. So Rashi says, take for me li, which is the letter mem, and everything that the letter mem represents. Truma, Torah is Torah mem, Truma is Torah mem. Li is the numerical value of 40. Lishmi, Rashi says, for my name is the tetragrammaton name Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, which is a numerical value of 26, which is embedded and hidden in the letter Mem. So we see already an idea that is formulating with the concept of Mem that is intricately bound up with the name of God. And again, the greatest gift that we can give to Hashem is a transformation that occurs in the giving of the Torah that was given on through the letter Mem, or the concept Mem, and the numerical value of the letter Mem is of course 40. Okay. We know that the letter Mem has 2 letters. It has the letter open letter Mem, which refers to the womb as it opens, and the closed letter Mem refers to the womb as it is closed, means hidden. It is closed means hidden. This letter Mem, I will discuss in a little bit, refers to, as I said before, the giving of the Torah that was given on Mount Sinai in 40 days. There are 2 letter Mems to tell us that there is the hidden, the revealed part of the Torah, and the hidden part of the Torah. The esoteric and the I forgot the name again. Exoteric. Where's my one? I need him. So the hidden letter Mem and the revealed letter Mem. It also, one letter Mem refers to Moshe, which came and revealed to us the revealed Torah. and the other letter Mem refers to Mashiach, and which refers to the revelation of the Torah as Mashiach will reveal, which will be on a higher plane. And there's interesting, and I don't have time to elaborate on it and to quote it and to explain it, but there's one verse in all of Tanakh, one verse only. Where do you find the final letter Mem? Where do you find it? At the end of a word, always, right? Because it's the final letter Mem. It's closed. There's one place in Isaiah where it speaks about Mashiach, where it's in the middle of the word. The final Mem is written in the middle of the word. Only one place in the Torah. Because it hints that the sealed letter Mem is got to do with Mashiach. Because he will close off. No more Puraniyut in the world. No more suffering. Because we know the letter Bet has 3 sides. The northern side is open because it says in the prophet that from the north will come punishment. And we don't have the time to elaborate on that. Many years ago I discussed that, I explained that. But the letter Mem closes that off, which means when Mashiach comes, there is no more room for punishment. There is no more room for any sin or the outcome of sin or any such suffering in the world. That will be closed off. But also the letter Mem refers to the hidden part. The closing of the womb, the hidden the womb as it is closed, as opposed to the womb as it is open and gives birth. This is significant because the letter Mem, we will discuss in a minute, has a lot of importance. Now, the letter Mem is very much intertwined with the concept of Mayim, water. Why water? Well, Mem and Mem. Now, the letter Mem is the 13th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And you know, in Hebrew, we have a concept called Atbash. I'm just going to show it here. Atbash, where the letters are written in both ways. Right to left, left to right, because they are like a circle where they're intertwined. One letter corresponds to the other letter. The first letter corresponds to as it says, the beginning is always bound up in the end, and the end is bound up in the beginning. So there's a concept of Atbash. Atbash means Aleph, Taf, Bet, Shin, etc. And here you see it over here. Aleph, Taf, Bet, Shin, Gimel, Reish, Dalet, Kuf, etc., etc. Go to the letter Yud, you'll find the letter Mem right underneath it. The letter Mem, you'll find the letter Yud here, you'll find the letter Mem above it. Which means that the corresponding letter of Mem is Yud. In the Atbash way of learning things, and we learn many things through this system of the letters corresponding, the first one to the last, the second last to the second, etc., etc. And that's the Yud. Then you have Maim. That's the Yud of Maim. And we know that the Torah nimshala le'maim. We know that water sustained. We know that the whole womb is covered in, the whole embryo is covered in water, so to speak. And the whole world is God's place where, so to speak, 99% of the world is water, which is, so to speak, the embryo of God's creation, of God's child, the world, so to speak. So Maim is very significant, and I'm going to speak in another lecture, hopefully in 2 weeks, the difference between the heavenly water and the earthly water that is divided by the heavens or by the sky, which will continue a little bit of this concept, but not for now. Just simply don't have the time. So we know that the letter Mem is connected to the word Maim. Mem. Mem, Maim, the letter Mem is the Atbash, corresponds to the letter Yud. So we know that Maim, the concept of the womb, also has Maim, has water. We know that Torah nimshala le'maim. Torah is compared to Maim. Maim yardu mimakom gavola lemakom namuch. Av Torah yarda mimakom kvoda lemakom namuch, mimakom gavola lemakom namuch. Just as water comes from a high place and trickles down to the most lowest of places. If anybody had a leak in their house, the water, you don't know where it's coming from. There's a leak over there and it gets up over there. It'll go to the lowest of place. Water has the ability to go down to the lowest of place, and the objective of Torah is that it comes from a high place, from the divine wisdom, and it must trickle down to the lowest place in this world. And in its same way, in its purest form. Just like the same water, the same drop of water. And this is very significant, which is another indication of the letter Mem, which is connected to the word Maim, which is as well connected to the concept of Torah, the letter Mem again. Now, let us take this then a step further. We know that the letter Mem is the 13th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The number 13, there are two important words in Hebrew that have the numerical value of 13. One is ahava, love, numerical value of 13, and one is ehad, which is the numerical value of 13. The ahava, love, is the revealed dimension of godliness that is evident and clear, and you see God's love. And that corresponds to the open letter Mem, i.e., the more revealed dimension of godliness. That is the open letter Mem. Ehad, the mystery of God's oneness, how everything is incorporated in God's oneness, that is a mystery. Dazat Memnuta, this is the secret of our faith, where we believe with absolute faith that everything is incorporated in the oneness of God. Not that there is one God, not just that there is one God, Hashem Ehad, but rather there is only God. In other words, everything is totally nullified to the existence of God. And you take, therefore, the Ehad, which refers to the Ahava, which refers to the revealed Mem, and you take the Ehad, which refers to the hidden Mem, because the concept of God's unity is a hidden concept. We have to meditate and understand and look and find and search and see it. And so you have then 2 times 13. Ehad, which refers to one concept, which one letter Mem, and again, Ahava, which refers to another concept. 13 plus 13 equals 26, which is again the formation of the letter Mem, God's name, Chaf and Vav. So Ehad, 13, plus Ahava, 13, equals 26, which again, intimately is bound up with the letter Mem. Now, we also have a closed Mem. What's the shape of a closed Mem? The shape of a closed Mem is 2 Daleds. See how I wrote here 2 Daleds equals 2 Daleds? Dalet, and you take the other Dalet and you put it this way and across, you get the closed Mem. What's the letter Dalet? Kabbalah tells us Dalet, the Zohar says Dalet, Dalet la migarma klum. Dalet is a Dal. Dal means, not in Hindi, but in Hebrew, Dal means poor. It means empty. Dli, what do you call it? Dli? A bucket, an empty bucket. It refers to the epitome of nullification, of absolute nothingness. Dalet, says the Zohar, Dalet la migarma klum. It has nothing of its own. It recognizes that it needs to be a recipient, i.e. nullification, which is very much connected to the concept of Mayim and very much connected to the letter Mem, as we will soon see. So the 2 letter Daleds joined together spell the final Mem, which is the hidden Mem. Now we know that a child is conceived in 40 days. And how is a child conceived? In order for a child to conceive, you need the mother and you need the father. The minimum amount to fulfill the first mitzvah of the Torah is 4, which is the numerical value of the letter Dalet. What's 4? Father, mother, son, daughter. The Torah says, Pru urvu. Pru, be fruitful and multiply. In order to fulfill the first mitzvah of the Torah, you need to have minimum a son and a daughter. And if you don't, then hopefully your children will have in the future sons and daughters, and you'll be able to fulfill the mitzvah. But the minimum is son and a daughter. The father and the mother coming together, producing a son and a daughter, is the letter Dalet, which is 4. Coming together, recognizing that each one of them are nothing and incomplete without the other, because you need one with the other. You need the Dalet of the woman, the emptiness, in other words, the feeling of incompleteness of the woman, and you need the incompleteness of the man, coming together, spelling the letter of final Mem. And they come together and they produce a child that is conceived. The conception process is 40 days, which again hints to the letter Mem. The conception, in the stage of conception and pregnancy, is the hidden Mem, is the closed Mem, where the womb is closed. and is surrounded by the water. When the womb opens, that's the open mem, the revealed Torah. We know that the last mitzvah says the Ben Ish Hai Naus Hilatan Besofan Bethilatan. The first mitzvah is bound with the last mitzvah, and the last mitzvah is bound with the first mitzvah. What is the first mitzvah? Bringing souls to the world. What is the last mitzvah? What is the 613th mitzvah? Anybody know? V'ata kitvu lachem et hashira azot ve'lamda et benehem. Teaching Torah, writing Torah, teaching Torah, disseminating Torah. The last mitzvah is also bringing souls to the world. There's a connection between the first mitzvah and the last mitzvah, i.e. conception of a physical child or conception of a spiritual child. Physically, through bringing children to the world, or spiritually through studying Torah, which is again connected to the letter mem. And by the way, incidentally, there is a pasuk in the Torah that Bilam blessed the Jewish people. And what did he say? Mi mana afar Yaakov. Who can possibly count the grains of dust which Yaakov is compared to? Umispar rova Yisrael, and even 1/4, 1/quarter of the Jewish people. Why did he say 1/4? Because we know the camps of the Jewish people were divided into 4 camps. Again, the letter Dalet. 1/4, Rova.
Rova also means mating.
Which, sorry?
Rova also means mating. You refer to the mating.
Of
Coming together, the husband and wives. He also referred to that.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's exactly so. That's the connection, correct? That's correct. So, it hints to the coming together. What is the coming together? Rova, which is Dalet, the letter Dalet. When each feels that they have none of themselves. Thank you very much. You reminded me that Nikuda. Thank you. Lirvot. So again, refers to the letter Dalet. The coming together, the uniting, the having children, the multitudes of the Jewish people is again hinted with the letter Dalet as well. And the letter Dalet, the 2 Dalets, is the final mem. And by the way, the fulfillment of the so-called prophecy of blessing of Bilam is when Mashiach comes, which is the hidden mem, by the way. So we know that there are 40 days by which a child is conceived, to the extent that a person prior to 40 days can pray that he should have a boy or a girl. After 40 days, he can't pray anymore. Why? Because at that time, after 40 days, the child is conceived and it has already its form. We know also that there are 40 weeks of pregnancy, minus the days of, it takes a couple of days for the seed to take a hold, take a root. In general terms, there are 40 weeks of pregnancy. We know that when man corrupted the world and defiled the world, and so to speak, because of their abomination and their lack of respect for one another and immorality, caused God, so to speak, to allow children to be conceived, children that were conceived in a state of impurity. Thus, to cleanse the world, the rains poured for 40 days that submerged the whole world and cleansed the whole world for 40 days and 40 nights to purify the world. And what was the main sin of the period of the flood of Noah, of the time of Noah? Gezel, stealing, lack of respect for one another. Whether it's stealing someone's wife, so to speak, or stealing someone's property, no boundaries whatsoever. Gezel, what's the numerical value of Gezel? Anybody knows? 40. Have a wild guess? 40. And thus came the flood in 40 days to go and purge and purify the world. We know that mikveh as well. Mikveh is a purifying entity, a body that we immerse ourselves. The Jewish people had to immerse themselves in a mikveh before they received the Torah. A convert must too immerse oneself in a mikveh before they receive the Torah, before they convert. What is the nature and the concept of a mikvah? Mikvah must have a minimum, what's called a measurement of 40 se'ah. 40 se'ah is a biblical measurement. That is the minimum amount, 40. Why 40? Well, that's connected as well to the rainwater of the 40 days. Again, the concept of 40 is to be able to put you into total different state altogether. Because what happens when you go to the mikvah? If a person goes to the mikvah to remove impurity, for example, let's say someone touched a dead rat or something, or touched something impure. We're not talking about a dead body. It's a totally different level of impurity. He goes to the mikvah. He goes to the mikvah. He was before in the mikvah he was impure. Goes to the mikvah, becomes pure. A nidah, a woman goes out of the state of a nidah. Before she entered the mikvah, she was a nidah. When she entered the mikvah, after she enters the mikvah, she is no longer in a state of nidah. Transformation. Again, mem, the letter mem. It's a transformation. And what exactly happens in the mikvah? You go down, you stop breathing. Life as you knew it, for even a split second, ceases to exist. The person who you were before ceases to exist. And you enter the purifying waters of the mikvah. There's a beautiful verse that says, Lev tahor bara li Elohim v'ruach nachon chadesh b'kirbi. David HaMelech says that God created me with a pure heart. Lev tahor bara li. Li, the numerical value of li, God created for me a pure heart. The li is 40, the numerical value of 40. How do we become pure? How do we retain our pure heart? Tavol. The lev tahor bara is the letter of each of the word is lamed, tet, and bet is tevol. Tevol means to dip, which means also batel, to become nullified. So when you enter the mikvah li, which is the numerical value of 40, which is the 40 sa'ah, 40 measurements of liquid, you become a new entity. You become nullified. When you immerse tevol, you become batel, you become nullified. Again, the letters of the word to immerse is tevol, which is the same letters of batel or bitul, become nullified. And how exactly do you become nullified? We know that there's a rule in the Torah, had betre batel. 1 and 2 is nullified. And we know that the composition of a human being is predominantly liquid. And how much do you think the liquid content of a human being is? 20 sa. 20 sa, which is the exact half of the purifying, minimum measure of the purifying water. Had betre, we said, there's a rule, 1 in 2, 1 in its majority is nullified. 1 in 2 nullifies you, so to speak, nullifies the previous existence. You who are made up of 20 sa, enter the water that is your majority. You enter the water and you become nullified. You become a new entity. You become batel through tevol. Through immersing, you become batel. Through you being the 20, a composition of 20 sa, entering a mikvah, body of water that has minimum of 40 sa, you become a new entity. You stop breathing, you become a new entity. You come out a totally new entity. And this again is the letter mem. And then what happened? And then Moshe Rabbeinu came to breathe a total new life, transform himself, and transform the nation of Israel into a total different nation. And how so? Again, through the letter mem. Torah mem, truma. A gift to God is Torah mem. The greatest gift is to be able to follow the principles of Torah that was given on Mount Sinai, that is connected to the letter mem. What exactly happened? Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. After the Jewish people heard the 10 Commandments, he went up the mountain in order to be taught the Torah. He didn't eat and he didn't drink. The whole concept of the human biology of Moshe Rabbeinu ceased to exist in its normal way for 40 days, which again refers to a totally new conception. And he came down, seeking to transform the Jewish people. But unfortunately, a small minority sinned with a golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu went up and prayed on their behalf for how many days? 40 days. The concept of prayer is transformation. to transform yourself. And that is prayer. That's why we can say to Hashem, Yehi ratzon milefanecha, may it be your will. By which merit can we come and change a decree? Because I'm different, I'm new, I'm a different person. Through my prayer, I've transformed myself. So Moshe Rabbeinu, and thus I ask of you, Hashem, to transform or change whatever decree. So Moshe Rabbeinu went up and he prayed for 40 days. Then he came down, and then he went up again on the Rosh Chodesh Elul. How many days from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur? 40 days. And he went up again for 40 days. And then he did tshuva, and the people did tshuva. He went up for the concept of tshuva and to be retaught the Torah on a different level. On a level of a Baal tshuva, for a penitent. Because we were all penitents. Before we were tzaddikim, we were on the level of tzaddikim, of righteous. Now we're on the level of penitent. In one way, in many ways, it's even higher. When they begged for it, when they asked for it, when they repented, the concept of tshuva is also transformation. Converting yourself from one entity, changing yourself, transforming yourself to a totally different entity. Someone else, tshuva. And then what happened? He came down Yom Kippur, again, with the second tablets, which was a second giving of the Torah. Again, he was there for 40 days, the letter Mem again. And he brought down the second tablets. And what was revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu when he was up there? The 13 attributes of divine mercy. We know that Mem refers to Ma'ayana Chochmah, the spring, the well springs, the water and the well springs of wisdom, divine wisdom. The hidden, the revealed. Where does Ma'ayana Chochmah come from? Where is the Ma'ayana Chochmah? Where is the source of the water? The Kabbalists teach us is Keter, crown. The divine will. The divine will is also the source of divine mercy, of the 13 attributes of divine mercy, which is connected to Keter, to crown, the divine crown, so to speak. A very high, lofty level. The Kabbalah teaches, "V'chokhmah me'ayin tematzeh." Chokhmah comes from ayin. What's ayin? Chokhmah, where does chokhmah come from? V'chokhmah me'ayin tematzeh comes from the level of ayin, of nothingness that the mind cannot even perceive. That is the source of chokhmah. That is the source of divine wisdom, and that is a high level called, the Kabbalists call it Keter. And that is the same source as the 13 attribute of divine mercy. That was revealed. Moshe Rabbeinu came down to the Jewish people and revealed it when he was on the mountain for the third time. And he revealed it to the Jewish people. How many attributes are in the divine attributes of mercy? 13. Which letter in the alphabet is the letter Mem? The 13th letter of the alphabet. So we see a connection. For all of these concepts that are happening. Going up the mountain, 40 days, the number 13, Mayim, the purifying powers of water. Torah is a symbol of, water is a symbol of Torah. And we'll just take this a step further and says like this. Amar Rabbi Yohanan. In the Gemara it says as follows. Rabbi Yohanan says, En HaKadosh Baruch Hu noten chokhmah, ela l'mi sheyesh lo chokhmah. God doesn't give wisdom. God only gives wisdom to he who has wisdom. Now if you have wisdom, what do you need wisdom for? Who needs wisdom? People who don't have wisdom. But Rabbi Yohanan says God only gives wisdom to those that have wisdom. What does that mean, to those that have wisdom? We know that chokhmah, wisdom, is a very lofty level. And you can only acquire wisdom through bitul and nullification. As Moshe Rabbeinu said, and Aharon said, Nahnu ma ki talinu alem. What are we? Ma, the word ma in Hebrew is what? It almost signifies a total lack of any identity. Remember, like the letter Dalet we said? Dalet, says the Zohar, Dalet la migarma klum, has nothing of its own. Ma, true wisdom, is when you come to understand that you're absolutely nothing and totally dependent upon God, which is the ultimate level of bitul, nullification, which is also connected to the letter mem. Tevol, bitul is the same letters, bitul, nullification, is the same letters as tevol, dipping in the mikveh. How many sa of water is a mikveh minimum? 40. Again, the letter mem. Ma, nahnu ma, koach ma. Chokhmah is a composite of two words. Koach ma, the ability to be nothing. What does it mean, nothing? It means to so perceive the divine presence that you don't feel your presence or your identity. You are so incorporated and so aware of the divine presence that you no longer feel your presence. There's no longer any concealment between you and God. And that comes from wisdom, koachma, the hidden wisdom. And that's what the Torah is. Oraita says in the Zohar, Oraita mechochma nafket. The Torah comes from chokhmah, from the divine wisdom of God. And what is this wisdom? How does one acquire this wisdom? Only through nullification. Only through being a ma. In other words, not feeling our own sense of self, but rather entering the true identity of everything and all, which is godliness. And that is all you feel. Therefore, when Rabbi Yochanan says, "En HaKadosh Baruch Hu noten chokhmah, ela shemi sheyesh lo chokhmah," it doesn't mean that God gives wisdom to he who has wisdom, i.e., you have the wisdom, you don't need any more wisdom. It means someone who has the ability to become ma, to become nullified, to render himself naught before the presence of God, to be aware of the presence of God. Now we said that the word ma is also represents a certain divine name, a tetragrammaton name that is spelt like this. Remember we said the tetragrammaton name has 4 letters, by the way, which is the letter Dalet as well. The letter Dalet represents the 4 letters of God's name and the 4 worlds. So the letter of God, the name of God's name has 4 letters, right? But we have certain ways how to spell it. So I'm going to spell it to you, how it spells out the numerical value of 45. Ma. Yud of God's name is Yud Vav Dalet equals how much? Mathematicians? 20. Hey. Hey Aleph equals? So 26. Vav Aleph Vav equals 13. Plus Hey Aleph, 6 equals altogether 45. Ma, which is the numerical value of ma. Nahnu ma. The ability to recognize God's presence in the world, which is revealed through His love, through His emotions. Ma is the numerical value of Adam. Aleph, Dalet, Mem. And we said that on Shavuot, we bring Ma'achal Adam. We bring as a offering for God, no longer do we bring Bali, which is food for an animal of Behemah, but food of Adam, which is wheat. Which means that we have advanced to a different level of revelation of God's name, which is a numerical value of Ma, the ability to nullify oneself, koach ma, to be able to receive God's wisdom of the giving of the Torah. Whereas in Pesach, we weren't yet spiritually mature. God thrust us, pulled us out of Egypt. And He showed a great display of miracles. Miracles that were not initiated by man, that was received by man. It was initiated by man. And because it wasn't initiated by man, it is a lower level of divine revelation and a lower level of spiritual consciousness. And for this reason, it is associated with ma'achal behema, animal food. As well as on Pesach, we're not allowed to have hametz, because hametz, the concept of the hametz is ego. And ego is very dangerous if you're not spiritually mature. But if you have become spiritually mature, you can use everything about the animal soul and everything about one's ego and identity and direct it towards godliness. As the Gemara says, Barati Yetzer Hara, Barati Torah Tavlin. I've created an animal soul, an evil inclination, but I've given you the Torah as a condiment. What does a condiment do? Think about it. I made a Yetzer Hara, and I've given you Torah as a condiment, as a spice. It's a spice. Why is the Torah called spice? Because one can overturn something bitter through proper spice or salt or whatever. You take something bitter, mangoes. What do you call it? Amba? You take the amba. You take these mangoes that are inedible or bitter. They're edible. Whatever. I haven't. Okay. You take something bitter. You take lemons. How's that? Take lemon, and you put it in brine, in salt, and in water. And it turns into pickled lemons, and they're very tasty, or whatever it is you want to pickle. The point is that the Torah has the ability to transform the evil inclination. The Mishnah says, Ezehu gibor hakovesh et yitzro. Who is strong? What does it say? Who is strong? Who is strong means to say that it's a question. Who is truly strong? So there's two ways to be strong. You can either totally crush and banish the evil inclination or distance yourself totally from it. Or hakovesh et yitzro, someone who conquers the evil inclination. Someone who you can destroy a city, or you can overturn the city to be your subjects and your loyal taxpayers. You can just bomb the city and lay it flat. We can turn all of its inhabitants to loyal subjects of yours. The Torah's objective is to transform us, to transform the world, to transform the evil inclination, to transform our physical dimension into something spiritual. And that is the power of Torah. And that is connected to the letter Mem. And for this reason, it says that the Torah is tavlin, is like a spice that can sweeten, that can take something bitter and inedible and turn it into something edible and good. Yetzer Hara in its own state is evil, it's bad, it's negative, it represents concealment of godliness and the exact opposite of our purpose of existence. Through the Torah, it's a condiment, it can conquer it, not destroy it, conquer it and overturn it. And that's the objective of the Torah. And for this reason, the Torah was given on a mountain. The lowest of the four elements is what? Dust, earth, mineral, correct? The Torah was given on a mountain. Why was it given on a mountain? That we should take the lowest part of this world, the lowest part of the existence of this world, and turn it into a mountain, uplift it and make it all close to God. So we should bear these things in mind and prepare ourselves for the Shavuot. Shavuot is a very, very holy day. And for those who are Kabbalistically inclined, there are kavanot, there are divine intentions that one has in mind when one does every mitzvah, including when one goes to the mikvah. The Rosh Hashanah of all going of the mikvah, as far as the kavanot of the Arizal is concerned, as far as the intentions, the divine intentions of going to the mikvah, happens when? When? on Shavuot. Therein lies the secret of all secrets of the divine intentions of going to the mikvah on Shavuot morning, early morning. That is the ultimate in going to the mikvah and having the proper intention of the mikvah, of which we said everything about what the mikvah does nullifies us. We come up as a totally new existence. Be a good idea if people could go to the mikvah before Shavuot and become totally prepared, totally new entities, transformed, and be nullified before God to receive the wisdom of God. Wish you all the best. Hag Sameach, B'sorot Tovot.